Absolutely. Silent, we are going to continue.
You want me to enjoy it?
No, thank you. I got it. Continuing on example 2, we were just saying how we can actually find out how many minutes it is going to take to fill up this pool. 10 gallons can turn into 10,000 gallons by multiplying times what? 1,000. Very good. So 1 minute times 1,000 will give us 1,000 minutes. So that's how long it's going to take to fill up the entire pool. So let me go ahead and skip back to this. Whoops. I froze it. Oh yeah, there it is. Go. Now going back to this, we see our graph. They wrote our domain, our x values, in terms of hundreds of minutes. So obviously this interval of 1 would represent 100 minutes, going all the way to 800 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and continue this graph because I'm not really crazy about the fact that it didn't get continued here and here. Because why don't we just go ahead and say that if it took 1,000 minutes, we would go, okay, that would be 9, and then this would be 10, which would represent 10 times 100 is 1,000. Now going straight up there, and then I'm also going to continue, that would be 9, and then this would be 10 on this side. So at 100 minutes, at 1,000 minutes, the pool is filled up because these intervals represent the thousands of gallons. So 2,000 gallons, 4,000 gallons, all the way up to 10,000 gallons. At 10,000 gallons, it has taken 1,000 minutes. And that is the constraint. Now Uriah, you can tell me what is a little strange about this, and what is the, we'll call it a discrepancy, not an error quite yet.
The discrepancy.
Okay.
Is the 10. It should be 1,000.
It should be 1,000, or
the amount of minutes.
You're right. This could either be 1,000. Or what if they're like, no, it's 10 because technically the graph is giving a scale of 100 minutes. What if I were to say, actually the 10 is correct, then what would you tell me? What would you tell me about the range?
The range would be 10 on the other side.
Yeah, so either the domain has to be the full 1,000 minutes if the range is going to be the full 10,000 gallons, right? Or we would say, well, if the domain is going to be 10, according to the graph, 10 times 100 is 1,000 minutes, well then the range would also have to be 10 because the range is also given a scale of 1,000 gallons. So either this would be 1,000 and this would be 10,000, or this would be 10 and this would be 10. So that's a little discrepancy there. I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably an error, but at least we learned something about the difference, yeah?
There's a centipede in here.
Oh, I don't really care. I would love to finish this lesson. Thank you guys. All right, here we go.
Why would you make it 10?
So the only reason you would say 10, get it out of here.
That's what I'm doing.
Go and hurry. And everybody pay attention to me, not the centipede, okay? Much funnier than a centipede. What happened?
It was so hard.
Okay, well at least he didn't eat it. That's what I was afraid of.
I've never eaten a centipede.
Oh, I just wouldn't put it past you. Go sit. Let me finish the class. Thank you. Okay, so Jacob asked, but why would it be 10? Now, somebody might say, well, if we could say it's 10 if we're talking about specific coordinate points. Technically, the scale that they gave us is each of these represents a certain 100 of minutes. So this 2 would actually represent 200 minutes, all the way to 1,000 minutes, which is the same thing as 1,000. So they could represent that as 10. In that case, they would also have to represent this as 10. But if we're talking about the real number that it would be 1,000 and 10,000. Okay, so back to our discrete graph over here. Let's just talk about what the domain would look like. The domain, because it's discrete, you can't just say x has to be greater than 0 because we know that it's not continuous. It can't be a number like 2.5 or 6.9, right? It has to be a certain whole number that's greater than 0. Here they wrote this as an integer greater than 0. I personally think you could also write whole number greater, that an x is greater than 0. Either one would work. The range, it says y has to be a what?
Multiple of 4.
Multiple of 4. Why is that? Because how many chairs fit at a table? 4. So if I have 2 chairs, how many 2 tables, how many chairs would that be? 10 chairs. 10 tables, how many chairs? 40. 100 tables, how many chairs? 400. So they're all multiples of 4. I'm not going to get a number in my range that's 3 or 21, right? Or 401. I'm not going to get anything unless it's a multiple of 4. Okay, I want to move on.
Did you say I was
Oh yes, I did. All right, real quick, I cannot take too long on this, so you need to pay attention. This guy, Alberto, is making mofongo, okay? It's apparently this really delicious Spanish dish. I've never had it, but now after I've been teaching this lesson and talking about these ingredients, I really want to try it because I love plantains. So, yeah. I love plantains. I love fried plantains. If you bring me some fried plantains, you might get a bump in your grade. No, just kidding. Fried plantains are so good. So this is a very interesting recipe. You need 4 green plantains, crunchy pork skin, 3 garlic cloves, 4 teaspoons of olive oil, and 2 cups of frying oil. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We are going to make a graph or a function or a table, I should say, that is describing a relationship between how many plantains you need to make a certain number of batches of this dish. Okay, so how many plantains do I need to make 1 batch?
4.
Yeah, then that's pretty obvious because it's on the card. Now, what if I'm not cooking for like my entire family and I'm just cooking for myself and I don't want a whole batch? What if I just want to use 1 plantain? What fraction of a batch would that be? 1/4. If I use 2 plantains,
2/4.
Or 1/2.
it's true, 2/4
Oh.
or 1/2, same thing. And if I use 3 plantains, I could make 3/4 of a batch, right? And if I use 4 plantains, obviously I'm gonna make 1. Then we'll skip and I'll say, oh, I'm having people over. I'm gonna go ahead and use double the amount of plantains, and that means I can make double the amount of batches, 2 batches, right? Let's look at the relationship between our x values, our input, and our y values, our output, also known as our domain and our range. Look at the relationship. How do you get from 4 to 1 and do the same thing to get from 8 to 2 and the same thing to get from 12 to 3? What are we actually doing?
multiplying.
To get from 8 to 2,
Oh, dividing.
dividing by
4.
4. To get from 12 to 3,
4.
dividing by 4. To get from 1 to 1/4.
4.
Yeah, you're dividing it into 4 equal parts. And each part would be 1/4. Okay, so what we're noticing is that the function, the relationship here is to get your number of batches, all you have to do is take your plantains and divide it by 4, also known as multiply it times a 4th, because dividing by a 4th is the same thing. Dividing by 1/4 is the same thing as multiplying times 4 over 1, right? So, if I have to, or I should say dividing by 4 is the same thing as multiplying times 1/4. Dividing by 4 is the same thing as multiplying times 1/4. So I take my number of plantains, I multiply it times a 4th, or I divide it by 4, and I get my number of batches. That's the function. That's the relationship, okay? Now, the domain in this relationship, if I'm going to describe the domain, I can't just list these numbers. I can't be like, oh, well, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, or 12. I can have more options than that, right? I can have any number of plantains that's greater than or including 0. How many batches can I make if I have no plantains?
0.
0 batches. So it's still part of the relationship, part of the function, but you're just not gonna make anything.
You're gonna make an airplane.
And your plantains, they have to be a whole number. You can't go to the grocery store and buy a half of a plantain,
Wow.
can you?
You can't. If you,
No, they will not sell you a half of a plantain. They will not. Okay, so we're just gonna stick to the plantains do have to be a whole number, and it has to be greater than or equal to 0 in terms of getting some sort of output, right? All right, real quick, and then we're gonna start that not counting quiz, okay? What are the constraints? What does constraint mean?
rules.
Yeah, it's like a rule, yeah, or a, what?
Limit.
The limit, yeah, it's like a rule or a limit. It's like, well, you can be this, but you can't be that, okay? The constraints, the conditions of the range of the function. So now we're talking about range, the y values, okay? Now remember, these are the y values over here. So, the range, which is our number of batches, right? We're specifying that we're identifying the number of batches. Well, we can say that in order to get the number of batches, all you have to do, it depends on however many plantains you have. So this is a really weird way to write the range in this notation, but if we're actually describing it as well, to get the exact number of batches you could have, you have to know how many plantains you have. You take your plantains, you divide it by 4, and then that will tell you what your batch could be. So if I have 100 plantains, what
25.
could my range be?
25
What would part of my, yes.
or more.
If I had 100 plantains, I could make 25 batches, right? So 25 is included. If I have 400 plantains, how many?
100.
100 batches, okay.
Or more.
So all of these numbers depend on how many plantains I used. So we're actually using the function to describe our range, okay? That is all I want to do with you guys today. And so you guys are going to spend the next few minutes. Here are the instructions. You're going to silently, if I hear talking and calling your parents. I know that's mean, I scare, because I don't want you to talk, okay? So you're going to step 1, open your phone book, silently.
This is like a
Step 2, open 3.1 homework. We are not doing 3.1 homework. We are just opening it so you can click on the Sabbath button, because we just need a way to link you to the Sabbath page. The only way to access this quiz and the remediation assignment is to go to the Sabbath website. The only way to get to the Sabbath website is to open something from Canvas that can link you to the Sabbath website. So you're gonna open your phone book. You're gonna find your homework. It doesn't really matter what homework it is, but just open your most recent 3.1 homework. You're not gonna try to do it. You're just gonna click on the Sabbath button to open up your Sabbath page. Once you open up your Sabbath page, you're gonna go to assignments. Once you find your assignments, you're going to click on I think it says 3-1 lesson quiz, or it might say lesson quiz 3-1. I'm not really sure. Then you're going to begin the quiz, okay? Go ahead and do that. It's only 5 questions. Then we'll talk about what to do after that. Raise your hand when you finish it, and I will give you more instructions after we are done. Yes?
What happens if we don't finish it?
It doesn't matter if you don't finish it. We'll get done what we can get done, but I'm going to be walking around making sure everybody is working.
You should just put the link to Canvas in both.